What if someone was digging in an unknown location and suddenly uncovered human remains that had been buried for thousands of years? What happens next? Do they keep digging? Do they touch the bones? Do they pull them out of the ground? Or does an entirely different process begin? The truth is, discoveries like this happen more often than most people think. Every year, hundreds of human remains are uncovered around the world. Some are only decades old. Others have been hidden beneath the earth for thousands of years. One of the most famous discoveries happened in 1991, high in the Alps between Austria and Italy. Two hikers were crossing a frozen mountain pass when they noticed something unusual sticking out of the ice. At first, they assumed it was the body of a recently deceased climber. Part of the head was visible, a shoulder, fragments of the upper body. Nothing seemed extraordinary. But the truth was far more shocking. When specialists finally recovered the body and began their analysis, they discovered that this man had not died months earlier, or even years earlier. He had died more than 5,300 years ago. Today, the world knows him as Ötzi the Iceman, one of the most important archaeological discoveries ever made. But how did scientists know his age? Did they simply guess? Of course not. Researchers used a scientific technique known as radiocarbon dating, a method used around the world to estimate the age of ancient organic remains. Every living organism absorbs carbon during its lifetime. After death, that carbon slowly begins to decay at a predictable rate. By measuring what remains, scientists can estimate how long ago the organism died. But determining Ötzi's age was only the beginning. Researchers learned what he had eaten before his death. They identified diseases he suffered from. They examined the tools he carried, and they even uncovered clues about how he died. An arrowhead was found embedded in his body, evidence suggesting he may have been attacked shortly before his death. Now imagine for a moment that the skeleton you're seeing here was actually real. What would archaeologists do? Most people imagine someone grabbing a shovel and digging as fast as possible. Reality is very different. The first step is often to stop digging immediately. The site is photographed, documented, mapped. Every stone, every layer of soil, every fragment is recorded before anything is moved. Because removing a single bone can destroy information that survived for thousands of years. In some excavations, archaeologists spend entire days removing only a few centimeters of soil, not because they're slow, but because every layer of earth tells part of a story. The upper layers are usually younger. The deeper layers are often older. Sometimes the location of a bone is even more important than the bone itself. Researchers use brushes instead of shovels, precision tools instead of force, 3D scanners, advanced photography, digital mapping systems, all before a single artifact leaves the ground. In many ways, archaeology resembles a crime scene investigation. Every detail matters, every trace matters, every clue could change the story. And sometimes, a single discovery can rewrite history. A single skeleton can reveal how people lived, what they ate, the diseases they suffered from, and the world they once inhabited. But Ötzi wasn't the only discovery that shocked researchers. In 2012, construction work was taking place in the English city of Leicester. Nothing unusual, just another parking lot in another city. Cars drove over it every day. People walked across it without a second thought, yet hidden beneath that asphalt lay one of England's greatest historical mysteries. When archaeologists began excavating the site, they uncovered human remains. At first, nothing seemed extraordinary, but DNA testing revealed an astonishing truth. The skeleton belonged to King Richard III, one of England's most famous monarchs, a king who had been missing for more than 5 centuries. Imagine that, a king lost for over 500 years. Found beneath a modern parking lot. Stories like this remind us why archaeologists are so careful. Because what appears ordinary today may conceal an extraordinary chapter of history. And that's where things become even more fascinating. A skeleton is much more than a collection of bones. To scientists, it's a record of a human life. The pelvis can help determine biological sex. The skull reveals additional clues. Teeth can indicate age, diet, and health. Long bones help estimate height. Old fractures tell stories of injuries and survival. Some diseases leave permanent marks on the skeleton, marks that remain visible centuries after death. In other words, bones can speak, not with words, but with evidence. Evidence that allows scientists to reconstruct lives long forgotten. And sometimes, those lives help us understand entire civilizations. A perfect example came in 1974. A group of farmers in China was digging a well, an ordinary day, an ordinary task. Then their tools struck something buried beneath the ground. As they cleared away the soil, they uncovered what appeared to be ancient statues. Then more statues, and more, and more. The discovery would eventually become known as the Terracotta Army. Thousands of life-sized clay soldiers buried for more than 2,000 years. Each one unique, each one different, each one representing a piece of an ancient empire. Even today, archaeologists continue studying the site, and large portions remain unexplored, which leads to an incredible reality. Despite everything humanity has discovered, much of our history is still hidden underground, beneath deserts, beneath forests, beneath mountains, and even beneath modern cities. You may walk above ancient secrets every day without ever knowing it. But there is one important thing many people misunderstand. Movies often make archaeological discoveries look like a shortcut to fortune. Reality is very different. In most countries, archaeological remains are protected by law because their true value is not financial. Their true value is historical, scientific, human. When an artifact is removed without documentation, part of its story can be lost forever, and that story may be more valuable than the object itself. That is why archaeology remains one of the most fascinating sciences on Earth. Every excavation carries two possibilities. You find nothing, or you uncover something capable of changing what we know about the past. And perhaps that is why humanity has always been fascinated by what lies beneath the ground. Not because of gold, not because of treasure, but because of curiosity, the desire to understand who came before us, to discover forgotten stories, and to uncover the secrets hidden beneath our feet. And if the skeleton you're seeing here were real, perhaps it too would have a story to tell. The story of someone who once lived, dreamed, feared, loved, and then vanished from the world, only to return centuries later and tell that story once again. But perhaps no archaeological discovery has ever become more closely associated with mystery and intrigue than the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb. In 1922, British archaeologist Howard Carter had already spent years searching the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. Many experts believed the area had no secrets left to reveal. Most of the known tombs had already been discovered. Large sums of money had been spent with very little success. But Carter remained convinced that something was still missing. Then one day, workers began clearing away layers of sand and stone. Suddenly, the first carved step appeared beneath the ground, then another and another. As the excavation continued, the entrance to an entire tomb slowly emerged before their eyes. The discovery was extraordinary, but what happened next was even more remarkable. When Carter finally managed to create a small opening into the sealed chamber that had remained untouched for thousands of years. Lord Carnarvon asked him a famous question. "Can you see anything?" Carter replied, "Yes, wonderful things." Beyond that entrance lay thousands of artifacts, gold, royal chariots, statues, weapons, and treasures that had remained untouched for more than 3,000 years. But what made this discovery different from so many others was that the tomb had survived largely intact. Most royal Egyptian tombs had been looted over the centuries. This one had not, and that is why it became one of the most important archaeological discoveries in human history. Yet the most valuable treasure was not the gold, it was the knowledge. Every object inside the tomb revealed something about life in ancient Egypt, its beliefs, its technology, its medicine, its culture, and the daily lives of people who lived thousands of years ago. And that brings us to an important point. When archaeologists discover a skeleton or an ancient site, the true value is rarely the object itself. The real value lies in the story surrounding it, where it was found, how it was buried, what was discovered beside it, and the layers of earth that preserved it through time. That is why removing artifacts carelessly can destroy pieces of history forever. Some of the world's most important discoveries would never have happened if excavation teams had rushed the process or failed to document every detail, which leads to a fascinating question. What actually happens when an ordinary person discovers bones while digging? In most cases, the first step is simple. Stop digging immediately, then notify the appropriate authorities, because those remains could be recent, they could be historical, or they could be part of an entire archaeological site still hidden beneath the ground. And sometimes, a very small discovery leads to something much larger. A fragment of pottery, a single bone, a small artifact. Any one of them can lead archaeologists to an entire lost settlement, or even an entire city. Yes, an entire city. Throughout history, ancient civilizations have been discovered because of a single clue that appeared by chance during construction work or routine excavation. And that reminds us of something extraordinary. The ground beneath our feet may be far more mysterious than we imagine. At any moment, hidden beneath layers of soil, there may be stories waiting to be uncovered. Stories of kings, warriors, explorers, and ordinary people whose lives disappeared from history. Yet traces of their existence remain, waiting patiently for someone to find them. Perhaps that is why humanity never stops digging. Not simply in search of gold, not simply in search of treasure, but in search of answers, in search of understanding, in search of the people who came before us, because every new discovery, no matter how small, adds another piece to the story of humanity, a story we are still trying to understand today. And perhaps, somewhere beneath a thin layer of earth, another discovery is waiting. A discovery capable of changing what we know about the past, and perhaps answering questions that have remained unanswered for centuries, and perhaps answering questions that have remained unanswered for centuries.
Yes.